Hi, everyone. At 7:30, we'll get started shortly, but we'll give a few moments for folks who are still in the waiting room or entering right now to come in. So thank you. Just hang with us for a moment or two. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for FCDC's January 2023 general membership meeting. My name is Brian Graham. I am the chair of the Fairfax County Chair of the Fairfax County Democratic Committee, and I am calling our meeting to order. And a couple of reminders for virtual meeting instructions. Is there echo, or is this my imagination? Jack, can you let me know? Okay, okay, that's good. I'm getting my own echo, which is great, but um it's going to be interesting to deal with for a second. Okay. We've done this a lot of times, so hopefully we don't have to worry about virtual meeting instructions that much. But of course, with a large meeting, we can use the raise your hand feature within Zoom to indicate that you would be like to recognize to speak. Generally, because there can be a lot of chat messages, we aren't going to look at chat for business. So we suggest that you don't use the chat window for meeting business because we may miss items there or may miss things that are not well, anyway, okay. And then, of course, we may have some counted votes during this with a motion. In that situation, I will initiate a poll, and you'll be able to use your computer, your phone, or your tablet to vote on those items. And as I said, probably lots of times before, you may need to exit the full screen mode on a tablet or a phone to access the voting window. That means you might need to swipe a little bit as well. And the voting window on a computer disappears when you submit. But let's go ahead and move into the agenda of the meeting. And the first order of business is the approval of the agenda minutes. And at this moment, I will ask if there are any changes to the agenda or minutes. Recognizing Sandra Clausen. Go ahead.
Yes, Brian, I'd like to move to amend the minutes under section 9, new business C, to read Sandra J. Clausen, move for the adoption of a national affairs standing committee resolution. So the addition is 4 words identifying the resolution as a national affairs standing committee resolution. Thank you.
Without objection, the minutes are amended. Are there any other changes to the agenda or minutes? Okay, seeing none, the agenda and minutes are adopted, and we can move on to the approval of new members. The list of new members is provided by the Vice Chair of Membership, Christopher Schaefer. The list of voting members and associate members presented here, to my understanding, have been approved by their district committees and have been vetted as we continue to say. This is usually our time to practice a electronic vote, but I will say, are there any objections to the vote to affirm the election of these members to their respective district committees? Without objection, the members are elected, and we can move on to our next order of business, which is the treasurer's report. Oh, no. Introduction of special guests. I guess I will say this is probably mostly elected officials for us as we're heading into primary season. And there will also be a section of candidates as well at the end, because some folks are not available at the beginning of this meeting. So at the announcement section at the end, we will also recognize candidates for office. Let me make sure that the folks. Okay. The first person I'd like to recognize is Jimmy Biermann. James, you are recognized. You have the floor for 2 minutes.
Sorry, it said I wasn't allowed to unmute myself for a second there. Hi, everyone. I'm Jimmy Biermann, and I'm running for Drainsville District Supervisor. Many of you already know me, but I'm from McLean. I grew up here. I now live on the opposite side of McLean, and I'm running for supervisor because I really wanted to help my community. I wanted to build on the successes that we've had with this current board and the successes of John Faust in making this a very, very desirable and awesome place to live. And I wanted to continue keeping our foot on the gas and moving forward as a community and as a county. I'm all about opportunity. I want to see opportunity for everyone. Drainsville is a very diverse place. We have McLean, we have Herndon, we have Great Falls, we have a precinct in Vienna, and we have a couple precincts in Falls Church. And I want to see a situation where no matter where you grow up in Drainsville, you have all of the opportunities to follow the path that you want to follow. I'm also doing this because I realize that of all the major issues facing America today, we need to start tackling them right here, right at this level, right at the county level, whether you care about climate change or affordable housing, or you care about economic development, or you care about policing and public safety. Whatever it is, we need to start tackling it right here, right now. I'm very, very excited to have launched this campaign officially on Saturday. At that time, we received the endorsement of Congressman Jerry Connolly. We've also received endorsements from numerous other elected officials that we're going to be rolling out here in the coming days and weeks, including Congressman Don Beyer and including Supervisor Faust himself. So I will drop my website in the chat here. You can find links to Twitter, Facebook, social media, the donation button. You can find it all right there. Hope you'll give me a follow and check out some more information about the campaign. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Jimmy. And of course, you can see the website here on the screen as well. The next candidate I have to recognize, I believe, is Saddam Saleem. Let's say former Vice Chair of Finance for FCDC. Saddam, are you there?
Yep. First, thank you, Brian. And I just want to say thank you to FCDC for letting me serve as your Vice Chair for Finance, and then of course Providence co-chair in the past. But tonight I'm actually here because I'm actually running for State Senate against Chap Peterson in the Virginia's 37th district. And the reason I'm running is because of reproductive rights, common sense gun control laws that we currently don't have, and the fact that we want to be able to fund education and affordable housing. So for you to tell you all this stuff, I'm going to briefly go back as a 10-year-old boy when my family moved to this country. We were living in DC at an apartment, and we got evicted so they can go ahead and build luxury condos. And I remember sitting on the side of the street, not knowing what was going to happen. And my father's coworkers took us in. We lived in basements until we found Fairfax County affordable housing, followed by we found affordable healthcare, where my mom found out that she had reproductive issues for years that she didn't know about. From there, we used a lot of the services that were provided by Democratic policies. And my opponent in this race has voted against Democratic policies in the past when it came to paid sick leave, legalizing marijuana, and of course, banning assault weapons. Now, in the last couple of weeks, we have seen mass shootings occur all over the place. Not too long ago, we saw something in Southern Virginia where a 6-year-old boy who took a gun and shot his teacher. So those are the things we need to stop. We can't tell ourselves that somebody else is going to come along and make change. That is why I'm running today. And it's time we look at Virginia's future, not the past. We need somebody who can be bold, be progressive, and be a true Democrat. And as a proud Democrat, I want to ask that you join my movement, and we will go ahead and leave our information on the chat as well. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Saddam. The next candidate I have to recognize is Carl Frisch, school board member from the Providence District. Carl, go ahead.
Thank you. That photo, gosh, I had, believe it or not, I had more hair in that photo than I do now. I just want to let people know that in addition to my receding hairline, I am running for re-election. So I announced earlier this month that I am running for re-election to the school board in Providence District. This is going to be a critical election in Fairfax County. We say that every year, but I think it's particularly so in 2023. We have a choice. Will we abandon world-class public education and schools in favor of risky Richmond political experiments, or will we continue our critical work to address every student by name and by need? And so I'm running for re-election to help protect public education and local control. And I'll never stop fighting to give every student safe and inclusive public schools with exceptional educators and equitable access to the rigorous academics and other opportunities they need to succeed in life after graduation. But to get reelected, I'm going to need everybody's help. And I would appreciate it if you would consider supporting our campaign. We're having our campaign kickoff on Sunday, February 5th in Falls Church, Virginia. And if you're interested in attending, it's going to be great. Congressman Connolly is going to be there, Chairman McKay, Supervisor Palchik, Delegates Marcus Simon and Holly Siebold, and others. We'd love to have you there as well. You can go to carlfrisch.com/kickoff if you'd like to join us. But I will see you on the campaign trail. Thanks.
Thanks, Carl. And apologize, I don't have a fun slide for our next speaker. But Heidi Drauschak is running for the new Senate District 35. And since not everyone, the floor is yours, Heidi.
No worries. I'm happy to give some context. Hi, everyone. I'm Heidi Drauschak. I 2 weeks ago officially announced my candidacy for the new State District 35. I think Brian was about to say, because of the new districts, for those of you that aren't familiar, that's Springfield, West Springfield, Annandale, and the surrounding areas. I promise I don't normally sit at my house with buttons and a suit on, but I just came back from Richmond. We had an in-person all-day lobby day, the first ever Democracy Day. We were there advocating for campaign finance reform and good governance reforms. Had a fabulous day talking to legislators, really pushing these issues forward, which is really why I got involved in the first place. I've been involved in state politics for several years now, and have really come to realize that if we don't deal with a lot of these systemic issues, like the fact that we don't have any campaign contribution limits in the state of Virginia, we don't even have a personal use ban. So our legislators can not only raise unlimited amounts of money, but they can spend it on anything they'd like. We're one of only 2 states in the United States that has that. And all of these good governance issues. So they're not always the sexiest issues, but I really do believe that if we don't deal with these systemic issues, we are not going to be able to have the conversations and solve the problems that really matter to the citizens of Virginia. So I've been fighting for those issues for many years. And unfortunately, the legislature has made it clear that for many of them, it is not a priority. I've been told over and over again that it will be another year or we'll find a better time. And quite frankly, after years of advocating for these things, I just thought, you know what, it's time. Instead of being an advocate for the next 10 years and being told this isn't a priority, it's time to step up and maybe try and do something as a legislator. So with that, again, I will be running in SD 35. I do believe that everything starts on the campaign trail, so I will not be taking corporate contributions. I also really believe in getting out in the community, and I'm excited to talk with all of you in my district and in the area. I'll be hosting weekly events throughout the entire campaign. The first of which will be a meet and greet next Wednesday at the Springfield Public Library. There's my website. So my campaign manager will put the information in the chat. Would love to meet with you, answer your questions, tell you more about myself. You can obviously also visit the website, which is HeidiForVirginia.com. Would love to get as many of you involved as possible. So yeah, with that, thank you very much for having me. Thank you for having me this evening. And I'm very excited to hopefully meet and speak with many of you over the next couple of months.
Thank you. I think we're going to have a little bit of time getting used to our new district numbers this year, but I thank everyone for running. I think I don't know that I have everyone. If there is someone that's a candidate that's expecting to speak right now, please raise your hand. I think I got the folks that I know of. There are some folks coming later as well. Okay, Chris, I thought you were going to come later, but I'll recognize you now. Chris Falcon, candidate for clerk of the court. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Hey, FCDC, it's Chris Falcon, candidate for Fairfax Clerk of the Court. You guys have been hearing from me for a couple of months now, but our campaign centers on 3 different pillars, and those are accessibility, world-class customer service, and improving efficiency to the court. I think you all have heard this, but I'm 8.5 years experience working in the Circuit Court Clerk's office in Arlington, but I'm from Fairfax County. I've lived here almost my whole life, and that's why I'm running for the job here. A couple of campaign updates. We've been circulating our petition forums around the county. Huge thanks to the volunteers that have been helping with that. If anyone else is able to assist with that, I'm going to put my email in the chat after I'm done talking. But those are county-wide petitions, so it's not district specific. And to that end, I was out in Hunter Mill District this past weekend and had an awesome time with the Hunter Mill Dems. Huge props to Paul Berry and Paul Davis, Paul Thomas, everyone that was out there, all the Pauls. But it was an awesome event, and it was cool to meet different residents that live in Reston and Herndon and in a part of the county that I don't spend nearly enough time in, but I will be, I promise you. So another event that we have coming up this weekend, Jane Materna is going to give an update about that at the end of the meeting, so I won't steal her thunder, but we have a house party coming up on Sunday, so she'll tell you more about that. Last update is on February 10th in Herndon, Sergio Romola is going to be hosting a fundraiser at his home, and that'll be going up on the FCDC calendar very soon. But just a huge thanks to all of you for all your support, and you guys will be seeing me soon. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Chris. So it looks like next I have Stella Karpski to recognize. Stella is a candidate for new Senate District 36.
Thanks, Brian. You gave away my announcement.
Oh, sorry. I mean, never mind. She's not.
No, I was going to work into it, but anyway, thank you all. Good evening, FCDC members. I really appreciate the opportunity to share my own campaign announcement tonight. After my work of standing up to the right-wing attacks that have been relentless on the school board, I did want to let everyone know tonight that I will not be running for re-election, although I do remain committed to ensuring that the next representative for the Sully district is a strong pro-public school advocate. And as you just heard or may have heard before, I'll be seeking the nomination to represent my community in the newly redrawn State Senate District 36. 94% of voters in this new 36th district have no incumbent senator, and I currently represent the majority of the 36 voters as their school board representative. We are at a critical point for the future of our Commonwealth. We have faced relentless attacks from Governor Youngkin and the extreme right on public education, on abortion access, voting and workers' rights, common sense, gun violence prevention, and climate. The future of vulnerable communities and the values that we all hold dear as Dems are on the line. And the lived experiences of our elected leaders and their close connection to the people that they seek to represent matter now more than ever. I'm a mother, a first-generation American who learned English as her second language, a small business owner, a public school teacher, and of course, an elected school board member. And I'm ready to continue to stand up and fight against the attacks of the Republican Party that seek to tear this Commonwealth apart, just as I have done for the past 3 years on the school board. Passive opposition is no longer an option for any of us. And I'm committed to charting a bolder and brighter future for the people of Senate District 36, with a vision where our new senator speaks as the voice of our community for working families and children who don't have strong lobbyists or special interest groups in Richmond, but who desperately need their elected leaders to demand that government works to make their lives better so that they all may realize the American dream. I'm excited to continue talking to voters about our shared future and invite anyone who shares these values to get involved in our campaign by volunteering, sending a donation, or learning more on stellakarpski.com. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate all you've done to support me the last few years.
All right, thanks. Next in line is Robin Lady.
Thank you, Brian. Yes, I'm Robin Lady, and I am grateful to all I've learned from Stella and Elaine Tolan and Carl Frisch, and in dialogue with them and encouragement, I'm running for the seat that will be vacated by Ellen Tolan in the Dranesville District for School Board. A little background on myself. I grew up in Fairfax County, grew up in Vienna. I'm a Madison graduate. Upon graduation, did my undergraduate work at William & Mary, and then I also did my master's in counselor education at UVA. And after 3 years elsewhere in the state, I landed a job in Fairfax County Public Schools 27 years ago, and I just retired July 1. In my capacity within the school system, boots on the ground the past 27 years, I served as a counselor at Marshall High School when they transitioned from AP to IB. I then worked at Thomas Jefferson High School as a counselor. Following that, I worked at McLean High School. And most recently, the past 15 years, I worked at Chantilly High School as the Director of Student Services. And directors of student services are in essence kind of like associate principals. We're administrators. We work 12 months, oversee school counseling, mental health. I also supervise performing arts. And often during my tenure, I thought to myself, maybe I'll run for school board when I retire. And this really all came to fruition recently in December. And it was actually Stella Karpski and I were having a great conversation about some things, and she sort of pushed me. And then I had some great meetings with Elaine and Carl, and I thank you both for that. Since sort of reaching out to Dranesville, I cannot sing the praises of the Dranesville Dems. Oh my gosh, what amazing people, what hardworking people. We are really in great shape, not just myself, but all the candidates in FCDC. And I guess, just to keep it short, I'm all about ensuring that all students have equal access to becoming the best version of themselves. And there's layers to what happens in a school system. And being someone who was in meetings at Gatehouse 2+ times a month, working with the L team, working with the directors at the other 26 high schools. I think I have a pretty nice perspective on how multi-layered all the things are that happen within our school system, but we just need to make sure we keep kids as the main thing and as the forefront, and make sure that sort of by name by need is always how I operated as a director. That what one kid needs is what they need, but what another kid needs is what they need, and we need to do our best to make sure we meet kids where they are, and we create access and high expectations for all learners, so that they map to a postgraduate plan, whether it be college or whether it be perhaps industry certifications or some other type of career path. But anyways, thank you for welcoming me. I look forward to meeting more of you. And a big shout out especially to Tracy Rohrbaugh and Stephanie Sedgwick. You guys have been amazing. So, and Carl and Stella again, and Elaine. And I just, again, want to continue on all the great work that Elaine has done and the school board as we combat what's happening from Richmond. So thank you for the time to introduce myself.
Thank you. And I'm going to say we're not done with all the candidates, but thanks to all the candidates, but especially thank you to anyone who's willing to run for school board right now in our current climate. I love you all very dearly. And next up is Steve Viscano, our Commonwealth's attorney for the county and for the city too. Steve, go ahead. Oh, maybe we need to allow him to unmute himself.
Unmute. There we go. Thank you, Brian. I'm glad to be here. First of all, thank you everybody for having me. As you probably heard, I am running for re-election again. We have our kickoff event this Saturday at 1 p.m. It's the earliest event of the day. You can come to our event and go to others. I encourage everybody to be there. You know, I'm hoping to, what I want to do is I want to continue to the work that we've done so far, which is, look, we've created more diversion programs that ever existed before. We are changing people's lives through diversion. We have stood up a data program that allows us to undo racial and economic disparities and reach better outcomes. And of course, we have built a victim-centered prosecution model. And at the same time, we've kept Fairfax County the safest jurisdiction of its size anywhere in the country. So I'm very proud of that work. And I know you all know that. One of the things that you probably don't know is that it looks like I might be having a primary opponent. This is a gentleman by the name of Ed Nuttall. Don't worry about him. You probably don't know him because he doesn't share our values, and he certainly is not a member of our group here. Look, if you want to know what this race is going to be, looks like my opponent is connected to the recall efforts that are paid for by Republicans, that are supported by insurrectionists like Ginny Thomas. And when it comes to the justice system, just take a look at his view is that the perfect person for this role, the people he supported last time, was somebody who ended up as Trump's deporter in chief. And in another jurisdiction, the person who is now Jason Miyares' right-hand man. But if you need to know anything about this, about what this race is really about, it's the fact that my opponent has made his career as being the attorney who represents bad cops in this county. He is literally on the payroll of the police union. So every time we talk about bad apples, that is probably somebody that my opponent represented. Every time there's an officer who gave a black eye to our police department, he probably got representation from my opponent. So what I'm saying is we have a real choice here. Continue with our values, continue to build on the reforms and move us forward, or go backwards and flush down the toilet all the work that this county has done on reform, on justice, on policing and building trust, and give it over to somebody who is literally on the police union payroll and certainly will let this community down when it comes to being smart on crime and actually being that independent voice that can build trust in the community and will hold our police department accountable when that time should come. So we have a real race here, and if you believe the things that we're doing are right and we don't want to go backwards, I encourage all of you to come and join me this Saturday, 1 o'clock in Fairfax City at Herbst Ordinary. My man Jeremy's putting all that stuff in the text box. I hope to see you all there.
All right, thanks, Steve. And last hand that's currently raised, but certainly not least, Makia Little, running for the nomination for HD 19.
Good evening, everyone. As stated, my name is Makia Little, running for Virginia House of Delegates to represent the new 19th district, which covers portions of Fairfax and Prince William counties. So I have Fort Belvoir, Lorton, Mason Neck, and Northern Woodbridge, everything along the Route 1 corridor from Fort Belvoir to Woodbridge. I am running to help unify our community so that we can solve problems and impact our shared prosperity together. And the new 19th district is the second most diverse district in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and the issues are just as diverse. So we've kind of been them into infrastructure, equity, and accountability. So if you can imagine all of the issues that align with those pillars, that is what we are running to ensure we see through legislation. Just so you all know, in addition to knocking doors, one of the things we say at Team Little is it's time for a little change. And we are going to be not only lifting as we climb, but serving as we run. So one of the things that we're going to start doing in this phase of our campaign is offering community office hours. And those are going to take place at some small businesses within our district. The first one will be in Woodbridge at a location called Veterans Growing America. It's basically a veteran-owned pop-up shop where other veterans, spouses, and dependents, which I am a daughter of 2 Army officers, will be engaging with the community to share more about our campaign, and also be having kind of a rolling canvassing launch during those days when we offer those community office hours. I am hoping that my campaign manager will be able to join us shortly, but we were kind of trying to multitask this evening, but his name is Nathan Perry, and I look forward to introducing him to those of you who were not able to meet him at the brunch. But as I said on social media, when you see him, you see me. And thank you for all of your support over the past year that we've been running.
All right, thanks. Next, I'd like to recognize Melanie Marin, school board member from the Hunter Mill District.
Hi, good evening. It's nice to see everyone. I think this is the first full committee meeting I've been able to join. I'm thrilled to be running again as the Hunter Mill District representative to the school board, because I continue to believe that strong schools make a strong community. I wanted to share that I think that the county deserves, and the Hunter Mill District deserves, to be represented by an experienced public servant such as myself, who improves access to opportunities for all students, to strengthen public policy that frames how FCPS uses public resources, and to foster trust, civility, and respect in public service during a very turbulent time in American democracy, and engages community. I've been an advocate for public education since the 1990s, but more than an advocate, I'm a professional in public policy and in communications and organizational operations. And that's the thing about school board. Our schools need more than passionate advocates who love our schools. Our school needs professionals, our school board needs professionals who can dig in and do the work. So I wanted to just share how I've done the work, but first let you know that I already have 2 Republican candidates who are actively campaigning against me, and they're being funded by dark money that certainly some on the committee here have already been hard at work for several years to track and research and combat. So I intend to carry forward the investment that this committee put in me and the Hunter Mill District put in me to continue with ensuring that students have all of the opportunities to learn, such as having the best curriculum for learning how to read, such as the science of reading, which I was a major proponent of. That was a bipartisan legislation that got signed and is coming into effect in our schools. And that's a personal thing for me because my own kiddos in FCPS, we have experience with dyslexia. Employment, we have to hire the best and recruit the best. And that promotes equity and access to all of these types of jobs that we have here in FCPS. And finally, safety. I was a lead in promoting hiring of a public health expert in FCPS that we hadn't had, that obviously was needed during COVID. I've worked to secure our school buildings and doing more with that. So come see me in action and join in the work to promote our public schools. February 16th, there's a public meeting in Hunter Mill. It's at 6:30 at Hunterwood Elementary, and I'll be having campaign events featuring all sorts of ways to engage, including with local authors, talking about banning books and how to, get through these times to really re-elevate the voice of sanity and education that we know the majority of our residents and families want. So I look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And once again, thanks to the candidates. I suspect we might have a few more candidates at the end of the meeting, but thanks to anyone who is willing to put themselves out there for public service. Our next order of business is the treasurer's report, which I tried to get to like 25 minutes ago, but I will now recognize Nadia Golding, our longtime treasurer, for the treasurer's report.
Well, hello, everyone. I was prepared to give this 25 minutes ago, and now I'm like, not really, but okay. This is our treasurer's report. The first page of it is a summary of where we stand, kind of as of now, what is in the books. And if you look at where we have not raised as much money as we had hoped this year. We didn't spend as much money as we planned. And altogether, that comes out to FCDC ending the year with about $39,000 in the bank. But I mean, at this point, not the end of the fiscal year. There is money that's not in the books yet from the Road to Richmond, which was a very successful event. So the picture is a little better than that. I think there's about $10,000 that came in January that is not in the books yet. Our district committees have a fairly good cushion, and so does the Spiro Fund, which for those of you who don't know what it is, we were left some money by Lillian Spiro many years, well, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and that money is reserved for helping younger voters, encourage younger people to vote and to get active in the Democratic Party. I don't know if people want to go into exactly how we've spent the money or anything else, but if anyone has questions offline, they can always ask me. And this is telling you where each of our district committees stands in terms of their federal and non-federal funds. Essentially, you just add those together because it really doesn't matter. We're able to use I'm able to allow them to use the money for any election, basically, based on the fact that we have so much federal money. Sorry, that's complicated. All right, so if anyone has any other questions, I can answer them in the chat, or you can reach out to me later.
All right, thanks, Nadia. I think I might have missed Congressman Jerry Connolly, who wanted to say something as a special guest. Did I miss that, or is that? Like maybe not. I can go back to him as I head into the chair's report, which is my report. So, Congressman, if you decide to speak, just interrupt me. It's fine. You're also chair, or have been chair. I don't have a lot. I think my biggest, other than the draft budget, I'm required to go through the draft budget per the bylaws here. And at this point, that the budget is very, very draft and very, say, straw man. So I will go over it in a moment. I'm also reserving some comments for the end at announcements, which will make sense later. But really, I mean, I'm really excited. I want to thank everyone who put in work for the special election for the current House District 35. And was very excited that we had a resounding victory in that special election for Holly Siebold, and who is down in Richmond already, and is filling the rest of Mark Keem's term there. So really exciting, and already have some bills kind of going through. It's kind of surprising. The first bill, it's always I'm going to say like a hazing thing that they do to freshmen in the General Assembly, where they don't let them get bills done. But her bill was to ensure that people who are deaf or hard of hearing had access to interpreter services during civil proceedings. I mean, it seems pretty uncontroversial, but yet some Republicans still did vote against it in subcommittee. So just not giving her a unanimous win, I guess. But she's got a couple bills, good bills going, and I know our delegates and senators are down there in Richmond fighting for us right now. And if you pay attention to what's going on there, we have a beautiful blue brick wall in the Senate that is going to protect the women of the Commonwealth for reproductive freedom. But also, we're doing work and putting in work for gun safety and others, right? I mean, just talking about all the school board nonsense and all the crazy things that are coming out of the Republicans right now related to books and libraries and and the defunding of public education. We know we're in the right place on these positions, and I hope you are proud, like me, to be a Fairfax Democrat fighting for those things. So let me get into the draft budget really quickly, and again, I say this is very, very draft. Is this not updated? Okay. There we go. Okay. So the draft budget just on very kind of top level items and income and expenses as proposed right now. We probably could estimate a starting balance slightly higher than this, but to be conservative, we're starting at basically what we're at now, which is $40,000. The income that is budgeted here is $372,000, and the expenses come up to about $307,000. There is kind of a weird, so a net positive in the budget with an ending balance kind of recovered back above 100,000. Just to remind you, the budget year is from April 1st to March 31st. So we're talking about primarily about activities and expenses related to the next election, which is a big election. One of the weird nuances or kind of quirks of the budget is that the joint campaign, or we always have a joint campaign, and that consists of a couple things: back to school nights, absentee chase, and whatnot. Those don't really show up in income or expenses because we use a net expense line item in the budget. So it's kind of like a completely separate budget almost, where so the proposed first pass budget on this, which is kind of interchangeably called the joint campaign or the coordinated campaign, has budgeted income of $240,000, which would primarily come from candidates, but also could come from other sources. And then expenses related to our campaign this year. The absentee ballot program or ballot chase program that the Bachners have championed for a long time is super important in a year like this year, because there are a number of candidates on the ballot that don't have party identification next to them. So making sure that we get to all absentee by mail voters information about who the Democrats are in a timely manner is ultra important for our victories this year. We also still have back to school item budgeted. I think we're looking at something similar to what we did last year, but maybe a little bit fancier than that. A voter guide, which is something that we typically do in this year, where we'll send information to folks about the candidates. And then digital outreach, there's something that we've had in the budget before, but not at this scale. I think the idea is that potentially we could do that on a countywide level with more money and maybe with the help of a digital firm. A staff, we need staff to coordinate across the campaigns in the county, but also to help with the field organization, and especially in targeted places where we're going to have competitive contests, and then also some literature for doors. Right. So, I mean, essentially, we're talking about that the initial version of this that came to me was over 300,000. I think we're going to see, just based off of some conversations with district committees, with candidates and whatnot, that this budget will change a little bit before it comes to a more final proposal in our March meeting on March 28th. So the net expense of that is almost $8,000, which means that it shows up in a line item on the budget, but it doesn't really kind of show that we're really talking about raising $600,000 next year, which is crazy. And these things are mostly placeholders. They haven't all been kind of approved by all the appropriate leaders and whatnot. Some notional ideas for some of these things, lowering the targets for direct mail and direct contributions, as one. This is going to be a membership renewal year at the end of the year, so we'll have a source of money coming in that way. And something that I haven't talked about in detail yet, but I'm sure we'll talk about in steering and in other places at length, the idea of districts also helping to offset some of the operations income by a percentage of their fundraising efforts. We're not voting on this today, so we bringing it up now so we can talk about it and see where that goes. And then, of course, we'll have filing fees for candidates and whatnot. And then on the expenses side of things, I already showed the joint campaign net on there. Expenses for standing committees and caucuses, and if we spend money on support our schools, that will net out, right? The money that we can raise for support our schools, we will spend. And then of course the expenses for office in staff, technology, bank and credit card charges is always kind of a question on here because the more money we raise, the more that it's primarily just credit card charges. It's not really bank charges because they charge a percentage. Credit card processors charge a percentage of their income when people pay by credit card. So that's where we are right now for the draft budget. If you have questions or concerns, especially if you're members of steering, but anyone, feel free to reach out. You can email me at chair@fairfaxdemocrats.org, or that's probably the easiest way. But now I will head to vice chair, committee, and caucus reports. I got Nora raising her hand already, so we can go to Nordell, chair of the State and Local Affairs Committee.
Thank you so much, Brian. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Just wanted to give a quick update from our committee. We had our January meeting of the State and Local Affairs Committee. And here at our committee this year, we are really thinking about what we can do from a policy and issue standpoint to support and help our candidates who are running this year in the general election and just like around democratic values. And so we decided that we were going to focus on two policy issues. One is public safety and criminal justice reform, as usual. We did this last year as well. And then we were also going to focus and be more active on education issues this year. And so I just wanted to extend kind of the invitation to all members of FCDC that State and Local Affairs is a place where we do work on issues and policy, and we would love to hear your ideas or get involved and work with you. And so if you want to get involved, you can send me an email. I'll put this in the chat at state-local@fairfaxdemocrats.org. And check out our meeting calendar on the FCDC website for our next meeting. And in addition to that, we're also happy to always work with folks to shepherd resolutions or bring new issues to the forefront in Fairfax County and FCDC and educate our membership. So I just wanted to put that out there and encourage anyone who wants to join to shoot me an email. We would love to have you. That's it for me.
Oh, thanks. Next, I'm going to Terry Bell from the 50 Plus Committee.
Thanks, Brian. Just a quick update on what we've been going and doing the last couple of months, and then something about what we're going to be doing in the future. First of all, I just want to give a shout out to all of the numerous delegates and senators who participated in our 2023 advocacy days. They were well received and we greatly appreciate it. And we found out as we were doing it that we were reaching more than our Northern Virginia delegation. I think I had mentioned this to the steering committee some time ago. And that we were actually reaching into the 6th and the 7th congressional districts and their delegates and senators in those areas. And so we've recognized that indeed it's not only the duty, I guess, really of the 50 Plus caucus to not only advocate, but inform and mobilize voters that are 50 and above, but it really extends throughout Virginia. And so one of the things that we have on our agenda to discuss in more depth is to reach out to the congressional districts to make the recommendation to the Virginia party so that we can create a older Americans caucus that will address the issues dealing with the, we'll say, Democrats and citizens of Virginia, really 50 and above. And you're probably wondering why now? It's gotten to the point that the 50 plus in Fairfax County is not only advocating for and supporting our residents and our senators and delegates, but we're actually doing the work to support many of the delegates and senators throughout the Virginia. And really, we need more bodies and more hands to do the phoning, to write their senators and delegates. And so that's why we're pushing for this. As many of you know, that by year 2030, the U.S. Census Bureau for the Commonwealth states that we are going to have 30% more individuals over the age of 60 than we had in 2012. So we are growing substantially. And then when you have CNBC say that Virginia is the second best place for retirees and to come to Virginia to retire, we see that as even being greater than. A comment was made earlier, strong school, strong community, and that is absolutely 100% true. But also is strong schools, strong community involvement in citizens supporting aging in place. And that is something that, according to AARP, nearly 90% of adults really want to stay in their homes, their apartments, and age in place. So we really need to have a more vocal and response from the Democrats, not only the Republicans, but the Democrats to push this. So what did we do this legislative session? Well, one of the things we did is that we have a number of individuals that are going and speaking on the affordable prescription board that's being proposed by Senator Chap Peterson. So this and others make us certainly very thin. And so we're always looking for more individuals to be participatory and to be participatory throughout the state. If you're interested, our next meeting is this coming Wednesday at 4 p.m. via Zoom, and the link is on the calendar. Thank you so much for your time. And for those that are running for delegates and senators, we'd love to have you come to one of our meetings so that you can hear about the 25% of the population and what our needs are as well. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Terry. Next is Maria Farrell, co-vice chair of precinct operations.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Brian. Everybody in this meeting knows how urgently we need to do well in this year's election. And we also know that the November 23 election is complicated and voter enthusiasm tends to be low in our local elections. So in light of the need for lots of us Dems to be actively engaged, the members of the Precinct Ops Committee are bringing back a training summit. This will be the first post-COVID day-long training for precinct captains and active volunteers. Our goal is to host this event on a Saturday after the primary. It will promote networking to share best practices and workshops on a host of how-to topics. We've begun the design and are currently searching for an appropriate venue. So let me ask you to be on the lookout for a save the date announcement. And if you are interested in helping to plan and implement the millions of details involved, please reach out to your district vice chair for precinct operations to see how you can join in the fun of creating this fantastic training summit that we're going to be doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. Next is Chair of the Latino Caucus, Maritza Cermeño.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening, everybody. My name is Maritza Cermeño. I'm the chair of the Latino Caucus, and I want to invite everybody to our next general meeting that is going to be this Thursday, January 26th from 7 to 8:30. We're going to have excellent speakers. We want to start with Delegate Elizabeth Guzman. She's a candidate for the 29th State Senate District, and she's going to talk about what is a winning strategy. And we're going to have candidates like Chris Falcon, that he's running for clerk of the Fairfax Circuit Court, Dr. Albert Vega, candidate for the Springfield Supervisor, and Makia Little, candidate for the 19th Delegate District. Please join us, and I'm going to put all the information in the chat, and I hope to see you there. This is a very important year, and we need to make sure that we get some Latinos in office. Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Marita. Are there any caucuses, committees I'm missing that would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, we can move on to new business. Oops, no, not that. There we go. Okay, we can move on to new business there. And the first item is a resolution recognizing Bruce Nielsen. I think typically maybe skewing regular parliamentary procedure a little bit here, that I can make this motion, and I'll ask for a second, that we move to recognize Bruce Nielsen for his passion, dedication, and commitment to service to the Commonwealth of Virginia and FCDC. And of course, the resolution was circulated prior to this meeting, and the be it resolved section actually establishes February 24th, 2023 as Bruce's birthday as FCDC's Bruce Nielsen Day. Is there a second? There is a second from Leslie Mason. Is there any discussion? Is there, seeing no discussion, is there any objection? Or did you want to say something, Nadia? Or you just
No, I was just wondering what
you're
we're
still
going
just
to do on
unmuted.
that day, but that's okay. I hope we do something good on that day.
I hope so too. We can come up with something. Okay, without objection, then we can approve this resolution honoring Bruce Nielsen. Bruce was a mentor to a lot of us in FCDC. He was our treasurer, of course, and communications advisor for a long time. And he will be dearly missed by the Fairfax County Dems community. And I will be very happy to present a printed version of this resolution to his wife, Kathy, on behalf of FCDC. So thank you everyone for that. And we can move on to the big fun scheduled for today's meeting, the endorsement and process for nonpartisan offices. The task force, and I was kind of going back and forth on how much to actually show about this, but the task force met many times before the previous meeting, and then has met in between the two meetings, considering the feedback that was presented at the November FCDC meeting, and making some adjustments and changes to the proposed process. And of course, we sent out an explainer video to the committee with that to help explain that. And of course, you can actually see all the rules as well. I think since this is coming from the task force, it can just be considered that it's on the floor for consideration. And I will open, well, I would say without objection, can we limit comments to 90 seconds? There might be a lot of comments, I want to keep us moving and not keep us here until midnight or anything. So if we can keep our comments as quickly as possible, that would be great. And now we can open the floor for discussion or for motions. First thing I see is Jim McBride. Jim, you are recognized.
Hi. Yeah, I attended the task force meetings, and I think it's a lot of the changes are positive, but I do want to make a motion for the entire membership to consider using an instant runoff format in the at-large races. And that is because it sounded like there was some confusion about whether that'd be too complicated. You need special software. But I did some outreach to FairVote, who are the experts on this, and we shared some information that it is not a complicated procedure. And frankly, the number one drama of 2019 was bullet voting. You know, the threat that candidates were trying to game the system by trying to get their supporters to only vote for them. And I just want to make sure that everybody's educated that with an instant runoff format, you can end that problem. You can have candidates go recruit voters to attend the caucus and then say to their voters, their supporters, please choose me first. And that's fine.
So if you're making a motion and you're speaking on the motion already, is there a specific motion that you're making?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to make a motion to adopt an instant runoff format for the caucuses, the at-large caucuses.
I'm going to recognize John Farrell because I know he wanted to make a similar motion, and you might want to consider his words.
Okay.
Mr. McBride, I intended to make a motion to move that the FCDC use the 2015 ranked choice voting system to that we've already used for selecting the endorsements, people to endorse this year, that we would use the ranked choice voting system if there are more than 2 candidates for district endorsement, and if there are more candidates for the at-large endorsement than there are seats. So effectively, if there were 4 people running, we would use a ranked choice voting system that we used in 2015. The membership is familiar with it. And so that would have been my motion. I'm happy to second yours, but that's the intent I'm trying to accomplish. I do have another motion, Mr. Chairman, after we dispose of this question.
Right, I just want to make sure we have a specific, I don't want to make sure that we have a specific motion about what we're considering and talking about, because I think on its own, just saying that we're going to use a ranked choice voting method may not be specific enough to amend the rules. I think it would still there are options on how we would implement that.
Well, I mean, I'd probably accept John's recommendation. The one other thing I would say is that just so everybody knows, people are already ranking their candidates. I'd be happy to post. Wait, hold on. Can I just say one more thing about the? Well,
you can, but I want to make sure that we're. I mean, you're speaking in favor of the motion, so I want to make sure that it seems like we have consideration that we have kind of a shared motion here between the two. So we have a motion and a second. So you may speak on the motion now.
Okay, sorry. I'm not used to making big motions. No, I did want to note that I did look at Lowell Feld might have the only documentation of the results of 2019 that I can easily find on his Blue Virginia blog. And if you look at that, the votes from 2019, you'll find that about 1,300 people voted, but there were only 2,890 votes. So that means the average person voted for a little over 2 people. At least, based on some simple calculations, you'll find that about 40% of the people or more bullet voted. It could have been a majority, easily a majority, if you voted for like 2 people or whatever. So people are already trying to rank candidates in the system. And I've been, very active in trying to learn more about the system. And it really solves a lot of problems in terms of letting people rank their candidates. And if they recruit somebody, they can have that person can be their first choice, and then they can vote for other candidates as the second and third choices, and so on. And also, what this system does is kind of avoid what we had last time.
Okay, that's your time.
Okay, well, I just to say is that it avoids the drama and the infighting that usually comes from a normal plurality system. We can really make people work together instead of work against each other and be upset at each other. So, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Farrell, do you have anything to add to this motion?
So I having made the motion, I accept Mr. McBride's second of it. We were successful in running this process in 2015. One thing to point out to people is that if we had used the first past the post system in 2015, Michelle Menapace would have been our endorsed candidate. But because of ranked choice voting, Il Young Moon became our endorsed candidate. So it does have the ameliorating effect that Mr. McBride was talking about. You wind up with someone who has the majority support of the majority of the voters, and it reduces or it inhibits scurrilous attacks by one candidate on the other, because if I don't get your first vote, I'm more than happy to take your second vote, because that's probably going to put me over the top. So I think it's a process we've used before. We know how it works, and the candidates know how it works. So I would hope that we could be moving forward with a more appropriate approach.
Okay, I see Sue Rosenberg and Dan Press with their hands raised next. Would you like to speak on this motion, or you have your hands raised for? Okay, Sue looks like she would like to speak on this motion. Go ahead, Sue, and
Yeah,
you as well, Dan.
yes, I'm speaking against the motion. I don't mind ranked choice voting when there are one candidate to be elected. When there are three, there can be games played with the ranked choice voting that can lead to problems. We found that even though we did it in 2015, when 2019 came around, we decided that we did not want the ranked choice voting because it would lead to unsatisfactory results. So I'm speaking against the motion to have ranked choice voting for the at-large seats.
Okay, thanks. I'd like to recognize Dan Press next.
There we go. It was telling me I couldn't unmute myself at the same time. It was telling me that you were unmuting me. So thanks, Brian. It's unusual, I think, that I am speaking in agreement with both Mr. Farrell and Mr. McBride, but I am. Ranked choice voting doesn't eliminate bullet voting, but it eliminates the worst effects of it, and it gives it avoids the potential attacks and the played with first past the post voting, which results in potentially a candidate that only has a relatively small, depending on the number of candidates, a relatively small but unified block of support. So if there's 6 candidates, somebody with 20% of the vote and no support at all from the other 80% could win. And frankly, in our current situation, where we have the potential for, frankly, Republicans to come in and try to game our system, a block of 20%, if they get past our vetting, could nominate a candidate. And this would pretty clearly prevent that. So it really is a safeguard against that kind of malicious attacks on our process. As far as the decision to not do it,
Dan, that's your time.
Can I have 5 more seconds, Brian, please?
Okay.
It had nothing to do with the complexities, with it being unfair. It just had to do with the perception that it was too complex, and that's not the case. It's actually very easy.
Okay, next I'd like to recognize Carl Frisch.
I couldn't figure out a way to ask this question, but I just want to clarify, because I've gotten a few messages from folks. This is not one of the 3 amendments that was submitted and put in the agenda with the materials for this endorsement process, correct?
No, it is.
That is correct.
And those will be considered at what point during tonight's meeting?
Well, Mr. Farrell, I believe, is going to move the other ones. The other ones can be brought forward as well.
So those are not automatically being brought forward?
No, I don't know. I mean, they were in the package that were sent out because they were brought to me by various people, but I think they probably should still be properly moved and seconded from the floor because they weren't from the committee. So someone would need to, I think someone would need to bring them to the floor.
Gotcha. All right. Thanks for the clarification.
Mm-hmm. And next, I'd like to recognize Aaron Yohai from Braddock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And speaking as a member of the task force, I know that we were quite united in our preference for ranked choice voting generally, but when it comes to the question of our 3 at-large seats, it wasn't a matter of complexity in and of itself, but there is a barrier here. So Brian, with your background in technology and your history in this area, would you answer a brief point of information? Will the software that we have available to us to tabulate these votes support the method of Mr. Farrell's motion amendment?
So just in my understanding, based off the research that we did, that out of the box, the systems that we researched do not have the specific support, the support of kind of the multi-succession or I don't know, whatever we want to call it, like round of rounds, a type of thing, a process that is proposed, but it is implementable. It's not something that is beyond doing. It's just not something that is a built-in capability of the software. So we would have to either tack on an additional kind of counting process, or some additional tabulation logic to get to the answer in that method. That makes sense. So so in simplest terms, yes, it's possible. It makes it a little bit more complicated than just using the single transferable vote method that might be typically used for something like this. But so that answers your questions. I don't see any other hands seeking recognition, so I think that we can put this to vote. And I'll stop sharing my screen just to force some people out of the full screen mode, and we can launch this. I'm not sure if the text on this question is right, but I think that the text of to me, it says for all school board positions, just to be clear, we're voting that this would apply to any multi-winner election where instant runoff voting would be used.
Brian, may I make an additional point of information?
Voting is in progress, but so probably not. You can send me a message. I can clarify if I need to.
Okay, we'll put it to rest. Never mind.
Okay. So far, the margin seems pretty decisive on here. Please make your selection if you're an FCDC member. If you haven't done so yet, again, if you're on like a tablet or something, you might need to swipe out of full screen mode or swipe out of it to see the poll option. And I'll give the last call for votes here. Okay. The motion carries a 74% in favor of adopting instant runoff voting for the multi-winner positions, 26% in favor. So at this moment, I would like to recognize Mr. John Farrell, who I believe would like to make another motion.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I sent in the wording for that, and if you could put it up, and I need a second, and then I'd address the motion.
I'm working on sharing my screen, but you may go ahead and make the motion.
The motion is to delete, there we go, to delete the requirement to obtain any signatures of FCDC members in order to seek the endorsement of FCDC.
Is there a second? Oh, there was a second. Okay. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, can I speak?
Actually, you may speak to your motion. Sorry.
Thank you. That's quite all right. First, this didn't go in the sequence I had anticipated. So it prevented me from thanking the task force members. They had a hard job. We've never done this before. We've never done a countywide unassembled caucus. And that's fundamentally what we're trying to do here. And so they had a hard job, and I think they did a lot of good work. I only had two differences from all the hard work that they did and all the work that they prepared. What they're proposing tonight is also something we've never done before. And it's exclusionary in its intent. And that is to try and keep Republicans from getting in the manger, as it were. Trying to keep the dogs out of the manger. But I don't think it's going to be effective, and I think it has an exclusionary effect that was not intended. And by that I mean this. Last time I had a nomination paper stuck in front of me and asking me to sign, I didn't have the time to look up to see whether or not the person asking me to sign their nomination paper, or their friends or their neighbors, was to look up whether or not they actually were a good Democrat, to access NGP or to access the van or anything like that. So I think the net result is that if somebody wants to get 25 signatures, no one's going to be engaging in a screening process to exclude Republicans. But the other part is, I think we're going to be have a net effect of excluding Democrats. Last November, there were, if I can finish, Mr. Chairman,
yes,
as
please.
the maker of the motion, last November there were 271,000 Democrats who voted for Congress. The likelihood that any of them, any of the 200,000, know 25 or 15 or 80 or 90 Democrat members of this committee is probably very low. And so to prevent one of those 271 Democrats from seeking our endorsement for any position, soil and water or school board, is ineffective and contrary to the best of the Democratic Party tradition. So I'd ask for your support for this motion.
Next, I'd like to recognize Aaron Yohai.
Thank you, Brian. I speak in opposition to this motion. I've been an active member of multiple campaigns in every corner of Fairfax County in just a few years, but while it's not the same thing, the act of collecting signatures has rarely, if ever, been a barrier for serious campaigns. It's the easiest thing that any candidate for office or elected official will ever have to do. That said, I hear your concern that this is for FCDC members only to sign, which you say would be used as a tool to exclude Democrats, not simply Republicans. But with that, I disagree. This is the one opportunity that we have to safeguard our process from would-be infiltrating Republican candidates. And it's a very small hurdle to get 25 signatures in a district of just our Democratic Party members. I think that any one of us could do that. We have a strong community here. Many people are aware of who runs and who is strong in their Democratic bona fides. We equipped to be differentiating in making sure that we aren't allowing one of those unwanted infiltrators to make it into our process without excluding good Democrats. And as a matter of fact, we've had candidates in the past who've managed to buck the trend and see themselves onto our sample ballots, despite opposition from within the party.
That's your time.
I believe that we can absolutely accomplish that and not be exclusive. Thank you.
Next, I recognize Dan Press. Oops.
Thanks, Brian. This time I'll disagree with Mr. Farrell. Look, we need candidates who can go out and get votes. We need candidates who can go out and raise money. If you can't go out and find 25 signatures of FCDC members, if you're not outgoing enough to go find 25 members to sign your petition, you're never going to get enough votes to win the election. You're never going to raise enough money to mount a credible campaign. And we need, we need this filter. There's no other effective way to do it. Look, we could appoint a committee of FCDC leaders who would review all the candidates and say, nah, I don't like this one. And that's one way we could do it. I think the more democratic way is to say, all right, go find 25 members. And if you can't do that, don't be a candidate.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to recognize Matt Savage next.
I guess I have a parliamentary inquiry, Brian. I just wanted to ask how long candidates have to collect these 25 signatures.
From today, if the process is adopted, until 5 p.m. on April 6th, which is the deadline for filing.
So that's like 2.5 months. That's what, 12 weeks or 10 weeks?
Sorry, I didn't reset that. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, I just agree with everything that's already been said. I think this is a reasonable safeguard to ensure that Republicans can't interfere in this. And if a candidate already has to get 125 signatures in order to appear on the ballot, if they can do that, they can get 25 more just to prove that they're a reasonable Democrat, a bona fide Democrat who has the vouching of 25 of these members.
Okay, thank you. Next, I recognize Melanie Marin.
Yes, I just wanted to ask a clarifying question that's related. So under the draft version 2, item 6, the candidate requirements, as I read the document, it doesn't say anything about the candidate, him or her or their self, being an FCDC member. Is that accurate? And should it is unclear to me whether the candidate needs to be an FCDC member or not. Can someone please clarify? And then also, does it need to be clarified in the document? Thank you.
So that was a discussion. I mean, there was a proposal that within the task force where it was discussed that we would require such. I think the concern, particularly because there are a couple districts where there are, where maybe we still have a little bit of recruiting to do for school board members, someone that we recruit. Oh, sorry. Someone I need to mute. So it was discussed and we decided not to do that. We thought that instead of making someone get the majority of FCDC members to join to be possibly a candidate, that it was less restrictive and more accessible just to get a certain number of FCDC members to say that they were democratic enough to seek the endorsement.
Okay, so I understand that, but I suggest, and I don't know if a motion is needed, that the call to caucus state that, yes, the candidate does not need to be a member of FCDC, or the candidate does, because it's unclear. It doesn't mention what the status of the candidate needs to be. And I think that's a point of confusion that we could clarify.
I mean, we could clarify it. There is no requirement in the call to caucus that a person seeking the endorsement is an FCDC member. So if we could clarify that, I think, without objection. That's not unless we wanted to change that requirement. As drafted, there is no requirement that a person seeking endorsement of FCDC has to be a member of FCDC.
Okay, the last part you said. So I'd love to hear what other people think. I mean, this is just my lens that I'm always looking at things and making sure it's really clear. So I think it could benefit from that, but I'd love to hear what other members think to it. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Looks like the last hand raised right now is Paul Jameson. Oh, we got another one, but go ahead, Paul.
Yes, as the video that was accompanying that was put out today, that was done very nicely by Julie Waters, sounds like, pointed out, this is not a primary, this is an endorsement, and that's very different from a primary in terms of what the purpose is. It's saying that the Fairfax County Democratic Committee endorses this candidate to run for a school board, which means that it is quite legitimate and quite proper to have at least get some signatures from FCDC members in order to get into the process of running for endorsement. So I do oppose that amendment.
Okay, Rachna Sizemore-Heiser.
Thank you, Brian. And I just wanted to
speak up just a little bit as someone who was a pretty new candidate, or was a new candidate 4 years ago, and also was fairly new to FCDC 4 years ago. I've been, a lot of my work had come in the advocacy world, and while I had been involved, I wasn't, as well known across the county. And, I did not announce my campaign until January 5th. And I remember this day because it's my dad's birthday. And I had all of my 125 signatures by early February in 2019. So it really, even as an at-large member, is not a barrier to get signatures. And I think it's important in this era to make sure that the candidates who are running are known to the Democratic committee who's going to endorse them. So I'm in support. But I just wanted to, if people are worried about the difficulty of getting signatures, I can confirm that it is not difficult, and it is a great way to get to know our local Dems, who also could be great volunteer base as you go forward in a campaign, which is also really important to build, is that volunteer base. So thank you.
All right, thanks. Next, I recognize Stephanie Sedgwick.
Yeah, I'm a member of the task force, and I just want to say that you're coming to us for our endorsement. Our endorsement comes with tremendous advantages, and I do not think it is a hardship to go to your local committee and get 25 signatures. And I'm sure the local committees will assist all of the candidates. And we at FCDC will hold signing events if necessary to help the at-large candidates. So we're here to help them get the signatures, bring them before the members of the committee. And I do not think this is a barrier. I oppose the motion.
Oh, I guess maybe I should have left it up to restate the motion before we vote. The motion is to move to delete the requirement to obtain any signatures of FCDC members in order to seek the endorsement of FCDC. So therefore, a vote in the affirmative would make it so that you do not need to, or a candidate would not need to collect FCDC member signatures to become a candidate, whereas a vote in the negative would keep the requirement as proposed. And I was calling the question. Riccardi, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Brian. Just very quickly, I wanted to speak to Melanie's point about membership. I'm not in opposition to the signatures that are required for the candidate to receive, or rather pursue, the endorsement. But I would be preferential to ensuring that that candidate was also an FCDC member. It seems to be part and parcel to me, and I just wanted to offer that perspective, even though it's not directly related to the motion on the table. I think there's space for that to be a consideration.
All right, thank you. Not seeing any other discussion, we can call the question. As I previously stated, a vote in the affirmative is to remove the signature requirement for FCDC members. A vote in the negative, nay, is to keep such a requirement for someone seeking our endorsement.
Hi, I just wanted to make, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to amend the endorsement process by reinstating a pre-registration period with automatic FCDC pre-registration. If I'm not doing that too soon, I've never spoken on one of these calls before. So pardon me.
Let me finish the counting of the current vote, and then I will recognize you. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't something I was missing.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. I'll get back to you. Okay. Last call for votes on the motion to remove the member signature requirement. Okay. The results are, it's 92% in favor of keeping the membership requirement. The motion fails, and now I recognize Vanessa Hall to make the motion that she was just making.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I've never spoken at any of these before. So, Mr.
That's okay.
Chair,
Well, congratulations. I'll get you a gold star or something.
I need it. So, Mr. Chair, I move to amend the endorsement process by reinstating a pre-registration period with automatic FCDC pre-registration.
Okay, I think what was proposed in, well, I guess what was sent in the email, I think we probably can use the text on here unless we're deviating from this. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, is there, Vanessa, do you want to speak in favor of the motion or do you, or?
No, I just wanted to I wanted to move the meeting along. I just wanted to reinstate this pre-registration. I as a parent, it really helps me, and it also, someone else is welcome to speak in favor. I think it kind of speaks for itself.
All right, I see Mr. Farrell has his hand raised. Mr. Farrell is recognized.
Yeah, I speak and I rise in opposition to the motion.
Point of order.
Mr. Frisch is recognized for a point of order.
You have to go to the person who made the second first.
That is correct. No, I didn't go to Mr. Savage who made the second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
It's my fault. I didn't see that he wanted to be recognized either. So we'll go to you, Matt, and then we'll come back to Mr. Farrell.
Thank you, Brian. I didn't put my hand up until you started speaking, John, so I apologize. That was probably my fault. But I do support Vanessa's amendment. School board campaigns are incredibly expensive, and the candidates don't get the same kind of money and attention from donors that General Assembly or statewide or congressional candidates get. They have more limited donor pool, so they don't have as much money to spend, and they really need that money to defeat Republicans in the general election. So by knowing beforehand who the set pool of voters are going to be in this caucus, it allows them to more efficiently spend their money. And then it also is just another barrier to make sure there's no infiltration from the Republican Party or any of these right wingers. We already know Republicans are trying to plan to vote in these things. They've described these pledges that you sign as unenforceable, and they've been in Facebook groups trying to tell people to vote for them. And so we know they're going to do this, and this will just be one more barrier to help prevent them from being able to do that, and to make sure that the people we endorse are Democrats and that they can carry the mantle of FCDC to victory. Thanks.
Okay, next, I would like to recognize Mr. Farrell.
Thank you. I rise in opposition to the motion. We're not a closed club. We want all the voters to vote with us. There are 271,000 Democrats, according to last November. We're not gonna review and approve 10,000 people, which is my estimation of how many people will vote in this unassembled caucus. And so to suggest, and the criteria for who gets to vote and who doesn't get to vote, and to say that FCDC members automatically get to vote, I don't think that proposal is consistent with the party plan, and it's contrary to democratic values. We can make available and find a way to make available to the candidates the information on what voters voted in the last primary that we had, and to help those candidates identify those voters. But I don't believe this motion is consistent with the state party plan, and it's contrary to a democratic process, and it's more like the closed caucusing conventions that Republicans use. And we shouldn't become like that. We're better than that.
Okay, thank you. Next, I'd like to recognize Nadia Golding.
Yeah, I just have a question because it's not clear to me what changed between the previous thing and now that we're trying to get back exactly, because you still seem to have to fill in a form and pre-register. So this is what I'd like to know exactly what we're voting on.
Yeah, so if I can try to clarify that the original process that was proposed by the task force had a pre-registration period. Sorry, I'm going to mute you if you're not speaking. Please, if you're not trying to interrupt me, please keep yourself on mute. The original proposed process had a pre-registration period where you had to fill out the caucus form, participation form, with the quote unquote Democratic pledge by a certain time to participate, and then the original process also was entirely in line. The concerns that we had from the original meeting, specifically about the idea that we would be reviewing individual voters and deciding whether or not they should be allowed to vote, essentially removed that obstacle, that we were trying to stay closer to the party plan. And by that, we mean that if you are a qualified voter and if you are willing to sign the participation form that says you're a Democrat and you believe in democratic values and you will support the Democrat, that we would allow you to participate. This change kind of goes back to that original pre-registration process. And I think specifically for the purpose of making a smaller universe of voters for school board candidates. I'm timing myself there. A smaller universe of voters for school board candidate and some time for them to reach out to those candidates to advocate to them for their own endorsement. So that means that there would be an end time where people would have to register. They had to register by May 5th, which happens to be the day of the Blue Fairfax dinner. And then that would give 2-week period for candidates, or candidates would receive the information of those voters. And then that would give the candidates a 2-week period to campaign for that smaller subset of folks. So it would make it different than an actual caucus where anyone could show up. And then I guess the concern is that people who didn't pre-register may show up and might be upset that they are not able to participate. So let's go back. Hopefully that answers your question. I can, did I already recognize Dan Press on this question? No? Okay, Mr. Press, go ahead.
Thank you, Brian. We're back to normal. I'm again disagreeing with Mr. Farrell. Look, there's any number of reasons for this. Number one, it does give our candidates a manageable list to campaign, and we want them to spend their money wisely, their limited money, and this would facilitate that. Number two, while unfortunately it doesn't have a procedure for us to vet the voters, it does at least put a hurdle to Republicans registering. As far as consistency with the party plan, we have, the party plan doesn't say anything about this, but if we're trying to talk about the party plan and a nomination caucus, we have pre-registration for the nomination caucuses. You can't just walk in. You can't just sign up on an electronic caucus. It's always pre-registered, and in fact, the participants for the caucus. Well, if it's a convention, the participants are actually elected. But we're not doing that here. But at least it gives us some ability to keep out people we don't want. But more importantly, it gives the candidates a manageable list.
That's your time,
and it's not an undue burden.
Sue Rosenberg is recognized.
Yeah, I just wanted, could you please share with us the relevant portion of the actual unamended, as far as this section is, of the second report of the task force that corresponds to this, so that we know what the difference is?
I don't have a line-by-line edit of this where you can see what this would change the text to. The text would be changed to be compliant to.
Okay, because as I remember, there's the ability to vote online or vote in the firehouse primary.
That's correct.
And this was changed, the length of time allowed to vote was also increased from the original, which was just to vote on that one day.
That's correct.
Now it's expanded, as I recall.
Yes, that is correct.
And so, as far as I can determine, that if you want to vote online, you have to pre-register in order to be given a ballot online. And if you are going to vote at the caucus, you just come in and you sign the pledge and then vote in the caucus. And I don't see that that is necessarily going to be get a lot of Republicans coming in to vote.
Just to clarify, the change that is proposed, and maybe I need to switch back to that screen or whatever. The motion it would require pre-registration to participate either online or in person.
That's what I'm saying. So I don't see that there's any necessity to require pre-registration for people who want to come in to vote at the caucus. I am against its amendment for that reason, because I think we have adequate safeguards in other things, and we don't need to complicate things for people who want to just come and vote in person.
Okay. Rachna Sizemore-Heiser.
Thank you. And I'm having trouble turning my camera on. I'm not sure what's going on, but can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay. So I just wanted to sort of, well, here we go. I can get my camera buttons working. So I just wanted to sort of talk a little bit about this from a candidate perspective. So as an at-large candidate, just to kind of explain what this would look like. And, I just want to preface by saying I appreciate the work of the task force. The original task force rules that were presented in November did have a pre-registration period, and that's changed from what's being presented today. So I think that's why this motion is here. Without a pre-registration period, I love the fact that it's open to anyone who can walk in. But in this current environment, with what's happening with school board elections, what it would do for a candidate now, with I think 3-4 months to run as an at-large, is it opens our pool of potential voters to 800,000 registered voters. And as in the endorsement race, we don't have access to countywide van without buying it ourselves to try to target voter outreach. Countywide van is very expensive. So I think it'll end up being very, very expensive, which makes it hard for candidates who might be parents or community members, as opposed to people who have a large bank account or bankroll by groups, to be able to get the word out across. It's basically a countywide primary across 800,000 registered voters. So I just, I think it's important to open it up. I think if we really advertise a pre-registration period, you could get what we're aiming for, which is beyond, a greater group of Democratic folks to be able to come and vote. But without that, I think you open the door to people coming in to vote, to have the Fairfax County Dems through an endorsement process support candidates that may not. Anyway, I just wanted to sort of talk about how that would look like for an at-large candidate. And so I think advertising pre-registration would help find that balance.
Next, I recognize Chris Ambrose.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, this proposal does not hand back some of the ideas that were being discussed before, which involved screening and approving the participants, does it? I mean, so anyone can, it's just a matter of pre-registering. Doesn't make a difference who it is, they get to participate as long as they pre-registered.
If they pre-register, they can be confirmed as a qualified voter and they complete the form, then yes, they would be eligible to vote in this process.
Correct. It's not like we're going to be doing some background checks on them like that was being discussed, because that to me is against everything the Democrats stand for. They're basically disenfranchising voters.
Right. Well, that was
concerns,
but you go ahead
with this. But I appreciate what Dan Press said, which is it definitely makes it more reasonable from a resource perspective for the candidates. That's pretty important. but it doesn't have anything. I agree with John's comments. It has nothing to do with. It doesn't prevent Republicans from participating. But from a resource point of view, it may make sense. But it does also change this from a firehouse primary to a closed caucus. So it's different than what was envisioned when those bylaws were passed. I don't know how specific the bylaws are in that issue, but this is now a closed caucus, not a firehouse primary.
Well, just to be clear, the bylaws do not say that it has to be a firehouse primary, or right. It just says it has to be a caucus. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Of registered voters.
Yes, that's correct. Recognize Melanie Marin.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I agree with what's been said by Mr. Press and Ms. Sizemore-Heiser already, and I appreciate the intent to be as inclusive as possible. I think that this process, casts the wide net. We try and get as many people in to pre-register, and then there's a set universe, and I think that really speaks to, how we're going to spend resources as a committee and as candidates, to try and reach a pool. The strategies that are used to run in elections, could not apply to a universe that was, so large. So we have to think about what's tried and true as well. Our purpose is to elect Democrats, and we need to keep intact the strategies that allow us to do that. So I do support this this motion. Thank you.
Next, I recognize Carl Frisch.
Thanks. So I think, as Ms. Sizemore-Heiser said, especially for at-large candidates, this makes the process more manageable by having pre-registration. Just to give people some context, I think it was said that you could look at the list of people who voted in the last Democratic primary as a starting point. That would be remarkably wasteful of resources to look at just one election to determine who's going to vote in a insular Democratic committee-run nominating or endorsing caucus. And without access to Van necessarily, it makes it even more difficult. Two other things, and then I'll finish. In the current proposal, without this amendment, we are already screening voters to make sure that they're eligible to vote. Okay, this just moves that screening up to be part of the pre-registration process. As far as how long candidates would have to reach out to voters, if this passes, starting tomorrow, people who want to get the Democratic endorsement would be able to reach out to FCDC members and start currying favor among them for votes. And then as soon as the pre-registration process ends, they would expand that campaign to whoever the registered voters are that pre-register for the process. So this amendment does two things. One, it makes the process manageable. Two, it opens it up.
Okay, thank you. Next, I recognize Don Simon.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. If I am a registered voter in Fairfax County, and for privacy reasons, I don't want to share my email address or my phone number, then I would be restricted from voting. Is that correct?
I don't believe that's necessarily true. I think it might restrict you to voting in person, though, because obviously, if you were going to participate electronically, you would have to provide those methods of communication so that we could send you an electronic ballot. I think it's possible that you could still potentially pre-register and then appear at one of the voting locations on the day of the election under the current rules. Okay, next I'd like to recognize Karen Corbett Sanders.
Sorry, I was having a bit of a challenge getting unmuted. Thank you very much. And thank you to the committee for all of your hard work on this. It has been obvious that you all have looked at multiple issues. I do support this pre-registration process, and I'll tell you why. when you look at what you're trying to do, what we are trying to do is we want to ensure that we identify and endorse good candidates who are going to be able to not only raise the money, but to get out the vote, not only for a caucus, but to get out the vote for the election in November. And so by having the ability to spend the next couple of months working on getting people to register and to come to the caucus, either virtually or in person, that requires the candidates to spend the time to get to know their constituencies. But it also recognizes that if you have a cutoff date for when people can register, it allows for both incumbents and, more importantly, new candidates to be able to have a universe that is manageable enough to be able to get to them and ask for their vote. Whereas if it is a totally open process where up to the date people can just walk in, then the ability for people to reach those potential voters will be limited. And so I would suggest that this achieves the purpose of transparency, inclusiveness, electability, identifying and endorsing electable candidates. And I don't normally disagree a whole lot with Chris Ambrose, but I don't think this is a closed caucus. It just puts parameters of when there are, when people can sign up to vote.
Okay, thank you. Next, I recognize Phyllis Klein.
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused because if we're endorsing, this is an FCDC endorsement, why would we want people who are not members of FCDC partaking in endorsing candidates?
Well, that's a long drawn out question from 4 years ago, but we decided at the beginning of 2020, I guess 3 years ago, in a bylaws change to make it so that we would have a caucus of qualified voters to select our endorsement. And that was result of what we had in our previous endorsement process, where we had candidates getting a whole bunch of people to join FCDC just to vote in that.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
So we changed the process at that time, and now we're basically, this is the first time we're going through this, so we're kind of deciding the construct of how this actually works. But I
do think that FCDC members should be automatically pre-registered.
Okay, I think I believe that is already in the existing process. I think that includes this included also in this one to maintain the automatic pre-registration of FCDC members.
Right,
Mr. Farrell, you've already spoken on the motion. Do you have a?
I have a question.
Okay.
As I read this, it does not prevent a Republican from registering ahead of time if they're willing to sign the pledge. Do I understand that correctly?
That's correctly. That's correct.
And the second point is this would give at-large candidates in particular 2 weeks to make contact with something like a couple of thousand people who might register ahead of time. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Yohai, have you spoken on this motion already?
I've not. I'm going to the previous question.
Okay. If we were done with, well, I don't really want to. Is there any objection to calling the question?
When I raised my hand, I was right after John.
Yeah, I get it. If you want to object, please unmute yourself and object. But let's just call the question. And so I'm let me stop screen sharing. And as a reminder, this is the motion to reinstate the pre-registration period. Why can't I launch it? Is it already launched?
Nope.
Jack, I don't know. I don't have the launch buttons anymore. So, I'm still sharing. That's why. Okay. Somehow it's still okay. There we go. I got it. Okay. So to clarify, the motion is to amend the endorsement process to require a pre-registration period where voters would need to pre-register by May 5th to participate in the electronic or in-person caucus. Got about a minute in. Hopefully, I mean, the poll did launch. I know it's because I see 75% of the people in here have voted. You might need to kind of exit full screen mode or kind of swipe on your screen or something to see the poll. Okay, last call for votes. I'm not sure. It seems like a couple people may have had issues with voting, but I don't think it would have made a difference. The motion to reinstate the pre-registration process carries, and 80% to 20%. And I recognize Kyle McDaniel.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to advance the pre-submitted amendment calling for screening voters to make sure they're Democrats and did not sign any of the school board recall petitions.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
So, in additional consideration of this, and I guess I'll share the screen. And I didn't tell Jack that I was going to do this, so sorry. I know the words of this motion to add either people with very low DNC scores or so that they could not participate, or for those that signed recall petitions for Loa Jane Cohen or Elaine Tolan. It is my opinion. I know I talked about this with some people and kind of brought brought these words to everyone, but it is my opinion as chair that this would not be in compliance with the FCDC bylaws. The FCDC bylaws say that we must have a caucus. Let me find the exact words. As described in the state party plan, and the state party plan says that qualified voters who sign the pledge may participate in the caucus. So I think adding this additional requirement, in the opinion of the chair, that would be against our bylaws, and I don't think it would be allowed. So I think that we could certainly make a motion to appeal my ruling if and have a discussion about that, but I don't believe that this is in compliance with our bylaws. And I recognize Francis Canavan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was actually going to address the substance of the proposal, but given the point that you were just making before we even get to that point, would this then effectively be a change in the bylaws? And if that's the case, this isn't the process for doing that.
That's correct.
Oh, is it in order?
Well, that's what the a bylaws change needs to go out to membership with 7 days notice, which I guess this kind of did, but it wasn't specifically as a bylaws change. And a bylaws change must also be subsequently approved at the next regular FCDC meeting in March. So conceivably, it could be possible to add that to membership, but But I don't believe this was ever really suggested as a bylaws amendment, so I don't believe that that is in order as it is. And that is my ruling.
That it is
Not
it
that
is
this
not.
motion is not in order. I've recognized Melanie Marin.
Hi. Yeah, once again, I respect the intent of this motion and will certainly appreciate the legality of it. I think when I think about the tenor of all the motions tonight in the conversation is that there are some things that are trying to be done that really are not able to be done simultaneously, like include everyone, but also focus on Democrats only. And what I want to raise is what I know other members of the committee have had concerns about is that, you know, we are a political entity. This is not a public, you know, official election. It's not going to go on VPAP. It's not going to have county election, you know, supervision or support, which honestly is why I do question even the format of the signature form. I think it looks a lot like the official form. And I just think, you know, we should figure out which lane we're going to be in. I think this opens the door to future conversations about endorsement versus just having a primary. I think also this opens, you know, I think what this motion is trying to do is raise some flags that this coming election is different than 2019. So that's before COVID, it's before the current governor, it's before everything we've seen. And, you know, we now have 3 of our most conservative districts with vacant seats. And we heard today that Tammy Darnak Koufax will not be running as well. So we have 4 open seats. So what I wonder is, as a committee, can we figure out how to use this process to be inclusive, but also realize this is not 2019. It's just a totally different ballgame. So if this motion isn't the right one, is there something else to do to protect, again, our mission to elect Democrats while still being inclusive and not exhausting our resources of running this process and primaries as well in this election that will have over a dozen candidates on every voter's ballot. Thank you.
Point of order,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
Point
I mean,
of
the
order.
motion was not in order, but the gentleman's recognized for the point of order.
You've made a ruling. The motion is
correct.
not in order. We need to move on.
Okay, we're back. So we've had some motions. We're back basically to the kind of the original proposal, the endorsement process. We have had some amendments made to or some motions to amend the process. So at this point, we're at consideration for adopting the process for Fairfax County School Board at large and district offices and Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District Director offices as it has been amended in today's discussion. Is there any other discussion? Okay. Oh, Mr. Yohai.
If there's no other discussion, then I move the question.
Okay.
No.
Well,
Then raise your hand.
I could just call it myself. We don't have any other discussion, so we can just call the question without a motion, and without objection. The question is ordered, and I will put to a poll. If I can stop sharing here. Adoption of the endorsement process as proposed and amended. Okay. A lot of people have voted. Please make your final selections. Okay, the motion carries 87% in favor, 13% opposed. I want to thank the task force. I want to thank everyone. I want to thank the suggestions from the chat today, from Mr. Becerra and others. We put a lot of work into this, and we are going to do our best to have an amazing endorsement process that is more inclusive than we've ever had before. If you think about it, we've had FCDC endorsements done by FCDC members and FCDC members alone for a long time, and opening this up to the public is really what we're doing. There are some mechanics of that, but that is what we're doing. So we'll have to do some work to get the word out about this, and I'm really excited to see what our school board candidates do this year. Let's see. Is there any other new business? I recognize Chris K. Chris, are you there? You have your hand raised.
Can you hear me now, Brian?
Yes, I can.
Hi, this is Chris Kerner. I'm an elected Democratic director for the Soil and Water Conservation District. To give you a little update, this has been a transition year. We have a new executive director, a good one, Willie Wood, who has really been promoting team growth. We have a really good, strong staff. The long-term chair, John Peterson, is just retired, and Jerry Peters, another elected Democrat, is just been elected chair. And we have significant new budget left over from Governor Northam's budget to help with small grants in the county, specifically for specific watersheds that are have stormwater controls or impervious surface or increased density and redevelopment issues. One of the things I'd like to let you know is we may be looking for a new candidate or two this year. So if you know of any candidates in the group who's a good Dem and environmentalist, they certainly could contact me. We'll look together for putting a good team together for the rest of the year. That's all I have.
Thanks, Chris. Wasn't really in order as new business, but I appreciate the update. And that is, that is good to share with this committee in particular, that we may be seeking folks interested in that. So I appreciate yours and others' work on that. Is there any new business? I will move to announcements afterwards, if not. Okay, I think that moves us into announcements. And am I recognizing Nadia first, or am I recognizing Jack first?
You're recognizing Jack first.
Okay, I'm recognizing Jack first. Jack Riley, Executive Director of FCDC.
Thank you, Brian. And thank you, everyone, for, big picture of me on the screen. Thank you, everyone, for the rousing discussion. So I do have a rather important announcement to make. It is with a heavy heart that I announce my departure from the position of Executive Director for the Fairfax County Democratic Committee, effective January 31st. I have some pre-written statement I would like to read. Serving in this role for the past 3 years has been an honor and an exceptional experience, and one I soon won't forget. I'll be starting in early February as the Director of Government Relations for an organization called the Planetary Society, which is the world's largest space advocacy organization, founded in 1980 by Carl Sagan. Our current CEO is Bill Nye, and I'll be working with their all-star board and staff to advance the interest of the space and science community on Capitol Hill. If you told me when I got this job in February 2020 that we'd experience a global pandemic, an attempted insurrection, persistent attacks on our local and state governments, including baseless recall attempts on our duly elected officials, and a renewed sense of urgency to defend our democratic republic, and that FCDC would rise to the challenge and come out the other side stronger, I don't know if I would have believed you. But it's not all doom and gloom. What I have seen this committee do over the past 3 years is phenomenal. We've had historic victories in the election of President Biden and Vice President Harris, a rekindling of the civil rights and labor rights movements, the most progressive legislation passed in the General Assembly, I think, ever. Record turnout in non-presidential elections, local government that is leading the way on criminal justice reform, affordable housing, environmental protections, and so much more, and the opportunity to work with such exceptional organizers, leaders, and elected officials. We faced monumental challenges over the last 3 years, and I'm confident that FCDC will survive the next 3 years and beyond and thrive when faced with the coming challenges. Before I yield the floor back to you, Brian, I wanted to take a moment to thank a few people. Many of you have been instrumental in this effort over the past 3 years. I want to thank Nadia Golding for balancing the books and keeping our organization solvent for these past 3 years and even longer before then. I want to thank Tina Barczyk and Saddam Saleem for your steadfast leadership of the Finance Committee, Maggie Godbold, Susan Johnson, and Maria Varel for literally transforming precinct operations throughout the pandemic, Greg Brandon for your creativity and dedication to developing the weekly bulletin, Stephanie Sedgwick for being my partner on so many first-of-their-kind projects, the many, many district chairs I've gotten to work with, and especially Paul Davis, Aaron Yohai, Rachel Rifkin, Kathy Rem, Marisa Zermano, and future Drainsville District Supervisor Jimmy Biermann, Peggy Morrison and Rich Weiss for reinvigorating our voter registration efforts, Mary Titch and Pat McAloon for your tireless work maintaining our headquarters, and to you, Brian, Mr. Chair, for your steadfast and always optimistic leadership throughout the past 3 years. FCDC is in great hands. I know that if I continued on thanking people, this farewell will turn into a filibuster, so I am going to yield the floor. Thank you, thank you, thank you for an amazing 3 years. I, cherish every memory that I have. Please don't hesitate to reach out on social media. Would love to get connected, and I look forward to working with all of you in the future to keep Fairfax County the blue gem that it is for our Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. I cannot say thank you enough. I mean, I did consider muting you there so that you couldn't say what you wanted to say. But I have been so appreciative of you as our executive director. I mean, you came in, slightly after my term started, and you have helped keep FCDC the great jewel that it is through COVID. And through winning elections and everything else, right? So I appreciate your partnership, and we are going to really miss you, but I am very, very excited for you, and I know that the rest of FCDC shares those thoughts. I mean, if you look at the chat, there's probably been about 100 messages of that so far. I do want to say something that I wanted to say in my chair's remarks, but we were saving it for here, not to derail or confuse any of the discussion. Jack is going to leave a gap in what we're doing, right? And the next executive director may not have the same skills that Jack has. So the personnel committee has met, is working already on announcing the position, and we'll open it soon. I would say before the end of the week, we'll have a position where people can apply. But we are looking for help. We might need help in the interim, but I think there's help that we could use just in general, right? So we don't have a webmaster right now. The webmaster moved out of the county. So if you have web skills, if you're willing to be trained in web skills, kind of reach out. You can reach out to me, chair@fairfaxdemocrats.org. You can also reach out to info@fairfaxdemocrats.org or fill out the volunteer form. So I've got three, maybe four specific skill sets we're looking for. One, a webmaster. Two, folks that are comfortable with data. Not everyone uses NGP. So, but if you are familiar with NGP, we might need your help because there's things like forms we need to create, contribution forms and whatnot. We're going to need help with the data side of things as well. And then third, I think social media, the people that schedule the graphics and create the graphics and respond to things on social media. We have some volunteers for that, but we need more. We need more help because a lot of that fell to Jack, and we want to make sure that the things that we do, like congratulating all of our electeds on their birthdays keeps going. And then fourth, I think there's probably just a general ask for office help. I think we can always use additional hands on deck in the office to help keep things going from day-to-day perspective. So I'm going to leave that to the floor. Please reach out if you are interested in helping volunteer. Go to fairfaxdemocrats.org and volunteer or send me an email. I'd be happy to talk to you about it because we really are going to need help to keep everything going at the same level we've been doing it without Jack. So once again, thank you. And I recognize Nadia Golding, Treasurer of FCDC.
Okay, well, it's a hard act to follow. Nobody can follow Jack. Jack was great. Jack is great, and we wish him all the luck in his future endeavors. And I'm just so sad that he's leaving us now. And so happy that he was here for the 3 years and gave us so much. But my announcement is much more mundane, but also important. You all know that Jennifer McClellan is running for Congress and to succeed Don McEachin, who unfortunately left us. And I am hosting a fundraiser for her on this Saturday afternoon, Saturday, January 28th, from 3:30 to 5:30 at my house, co-hosting with a bunch of other groups, Virginia Democracy Forward, Women of Friends of the Women of Arlington, and so on. Network Nova, I believe, also. And I'm going to put the RSVP link in the chat, and I hope that you would all consider coming and supporting this congressman. She will be here, and she will tell us about what she plans to do in Congress and about how her campaign is going, and we need to send her there strong. So we need a new congresswoman from Virginia, Democratic congresswoman from Virginia. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. I will see you there. I'm happy to support, and I hope I see some other folks there. Next, I recognize Deborah Woolen, Recording Secretary. Oops, I might have muted you. I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks so much, Brian. Quickly, for anyone really, but specifically this announcement is for those who are running for an elected seat. You're welcome to contact me if you'd like to be on Inside Scoop. I'm going to put my email address in the chat. Inside Scoop, for those who don't know, is a local channel, a local show on Fairfax Public Access channel, and also streams on YouTube live. Just an opportunity for folks to know about you. As an FYI, this is not an endorsement, but it is an opportunity to let folks know who you are and on where you stand on issues. So again, I'll put my email address in the chat. You can also contact Ben Zuhl for more information. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I was looking at Ben on there too. Ben has been keeping Inside Scoop going for a very long time. So thanks for that invite. People would be happy to hear from candidates. Next, I recognize Rose Chu.
Lunar New Year celebration is a free event sponsored by the Democratic Asian Americans of Virginia and the FCDC Asian Pacific Islander Caucus. It's Sunday, 2 o'clock, Mason Government Center on the FCDC calendar.
Thanks. Next, I recognize Jerry Poe.
Thanks. I just want to remind everybody on Valentine's Day, February 14th, we'll be doing our vigil at the NRA. There's been a spate of gun violence slaughters in our country. We continue to see over 3,000 children per year killed by guns. So if you can turn out, it's a terrific crowd, and we just won a whole bunch of good bills in the Senate in Richmond. So our energy is strong. Turnout 10 to 11 on Tuesday, February 14th. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, I recognize Jamin Turner.
Good evening, Fairfax Dems. I just wanted to invite all of you to a meet and greet that Holly Hazard and I are hosting for Chris Falcon for the county clerk position. It is this Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. And it is on the FCDC calendar, so you can find it. And you're all familiar with meet and greets. Probably most of you know about Chris and know about the county clerk position. But I'd just like to make a plug that please use this meet and greet to talk about the position and to talk about Chris with any of your friends or colleagues. They're welcome to come, and we'd love to have them. But use this meet and greet as an opportunity to let the people know in your network that this position is on the ballot. It's only on the ballot every 8 years. A lot of people won't know about it, and just wanted to give you that opportunity. The meet and greet this Sunday from 4 to 6 for Chris Falcon for county clerk, and it is on the FCDC calendar.
Thanks, Jane. Next, I recognize former delegate Hala Ayala, running for the State Senate District 33, new 33rd District.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Happy New Year. It is so good to see all of your faces. I have lived in the 33rd District since 81. I am a product of Fairfax County and migrated to Prince William in 81. Also a product of public schools. You've seen what happened in 2021, where Republicans have just shown up and show out. But I have a different story. We showed up and showed out in 2022, electing Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger, Jennifer Wexton back to their seats. And I'm sure we're going to have the same turnout for this district. For those who don't know, there's no incumbent in this seat. And we need pragmatic fighters who are consistent, who have served in leadership like myself, chairing several committees. And also, we'll fight for gun violence prevention. As you've heard my story before, many of you, when I ran for lieutenant governor, I am a byproduct of gun violence. And it's sad to see that within 24 days of the new year, we've had 36 mass shootings. This is no longer a crisis. This is a pandemic, and we need fighters that will take on Republicans. And I think it would be bittersweet for me to sit in that chamber and look at Winsome Sears and stand up for gun violence prevention legislation, will champion reproductive health care and put those Virginian voices in front of politics. We've seen Republicans in Washington, the charades and the circus play out. We don't need that in Richmond, and we certainly don't need that here in our state. So from privacy to policy, I would be the first national security specialist to serve in this chamber. I think we need my voice to represent not only Virginians of the 33rd, but all Virginians. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your constant advocacy and the work that you do to make Virginia a better place. And we'll put our contact information in the chat. Be well.
All right. Thanks, Hala. Good to see you.
It's good to see you, Brian. Thank you.
Next, I recognize Max Jackson from Senator Marsden.
Hey, how are you doing, everyone? Thank you, Brian. First of all, I'll keep this short and sweet. I know it's almost 10 o'clock and y'all probably want to get out of here, but I just wanted to follow up and provide a quick update on what's going on in session here. Brian, thank you for earlier when you were talking, you kind of stole part of my thunder when you were saying that the Senate blue wall that we put up is here to help protect things that Republicans are trying to do. So, for instance, reproductive rights was something that you listed. Also, today in the Ag Committee, the Agriculture Committee, we were able to defeat the repeal of Reggie and the Virginia Clean Economy Act. They were trying to roll back. So we will look to do that again in crossover when we most likely get something like that from the House side. I just wanted to say, on top of all of the things that we're preventing, one of the things that Brian also mentioned was trying to increase our gun safety legislation. Dave has a bill up in committee this week surrounding the issue that has really come about in the last couple of years, where people are stealing guns from cars much more often than they used to. And so this bill addresses making sure that if you do have a firearm in your car, that it is both locked in the vehicle is locked, and preventing easy access for kids to come and get these guns. The other thing that big news from today was we were able to get campaign finance bill through privileges and elections. It will now go on to the Finance Committee. So it's kind of slowly working its way through, and hopefully that'll pass through the Senate, and we'll be able to fight for that on the House side. So I just wanted to thank everybody as well for keeping me company over at least the last hour or so while I've been here alone, just finishing prepping for a really busy day tomorrow. So I've really enjoyed listening to the conversation. So thank you all.
Well, thanks, and thanks to all of our workers down in Richmond doing the good work down there. Next, I recognize John Farrell.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to check to make sure now that Jack's leaving, that we have made all of our submissions or nominations for something like 3,000 election officers that the Board of Elections will appoint so that we can actually run elections in November and in June. I also want to let Matt know, Dave Marsden introduced a bill to allow casinos in Reston. And I don't know anybody in Reston who thinks that's a good idea. But back to my question, have we submitted our nominations for election officers?
Jack can answer that question. Jack can answer that question.
Yes, all 3,186 of them. So yes.
Thank you, Jack.
I told him he had to do that before he left. So I wasn't sure the answer to that, but yes. Okay, next I recognize Maggie Godbold.
Hi, everybody. Maggie here. For those of you who are on and are still around, thank you for staying. For those of you who were on the committee meeting back in November, you might have heard a request for some folks to get a fundraiser for Kellen Squire. And both Nadia and I raised our hands, and so we are going to do a joint fundraiser for Kellen. Kellen is running for to be the delegate in House District 55, and he is one of those folks that I think is got an excellent chance. He has a great ground game. He's got experience. He will talk to anyone, including some of our right-wing compatriots. And so I'm very, very excited. If you ever go to Daily Coast, he writes some really, really good pieces there. And I think he's going to be a great delegate. So I'd like to invite you again. It's going to be on February 3rd, Friday, from 7 until 9. And it is on the FCDC calendar. And again, you'll have Nadia's great food, and I'll be there to help out. And please do come. I'll put the sign up into the chat. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Maggie. Next, I recognize Roja Henson, a candidate for the new House District 19.
Good evening. I do apologize for not having my camera on. I believe today is the day I may become an uncle. So we're about to camp out of Fair Oaks Hospital. So again, I do apologize for not having my camera on. My name is Roja Henson, candidate for House District 19. That is on the eastern side of Fairfax, on the Route 1 corridor. I have served as the senior vice chair of the Prince William County Democratic Committee, vice president of the Prince William County Young Dems, City of Manassas and Manassas Park. I have worked in emergency management, dealing with active shooters, terrorisms, hurricanes, and tornadoes. And right now, I work in information technology. And if you would have stated that I would be doing any of these things, I would assume that you were bluffing. Growing up, because I was born to a young mother, me and my sister and I, and my dad struggled with addiction, I was told I would not amount to anything, but it was the community that surrounded my family and myself during that time. And I'm asking the community to surround us again as I embark on this journey to become delegate for House District 19. As we know, the current slate that we're dealing with, we have a governor that is trying to attack LGBT youth, kids, especially trans kids. We have a GOP party that's trying to attack women's reproductive health and a right to choose. So we already know what's at stake, but I need your support in order to get down to the General Assembly and be that trusted voice for House District 19 and for you all. I would ask that you get involved with my campaign by going to hensonforva.com. I'd love to chat with you. We will be having some upcoming canvas launch on February 4th and campaign launch shortly. So thank you so much for your time. I look forward in speaking to everyone.
Thanks, Roja. And I recognize Rose too again. Maybe. Rose, are you there?
Sorry, I meant to lower my hand.
Oh, okay. Well,
Brian, you're muted.
Oh, good. I'm just talking to myself. There being no further announcements then, and being no further business before the committee, we are adjourned. Our next meeting is March 28th, which will be hybrid. I would encourage people, if you are so inclined, to come, because there may be candidates who are seeking their school board signatures and whatnot, right? So that's an opportunity to do that for folks. Of course, as always, check out our calendar, fairfaxdems.org/calendar, for your next district committee meeting, or to check out one of our caucuses or standing committees. We would love for you to get involved. And thank you to all of you for sticking, all 150 of you that stuck around to the end here. Thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you again at something else. Thanks. Have a good one.